Okay, so I'm delighted to be joined by former Roscommon footballer Cathal Cregg. We're going to have a look ahead to this weekend's All-Ireland football quarter-finals. First of all, Cathal, how are you keeping?
All good now. Thanks for having me on there.
I suppose from our perspective, we won't hide that we're Roscommon men. It's great to be looking forward to football quarter-final weekend with Roscommon in it anyways.
Yeah, brilliant. Sure. Look, the last weekend was some win up in Tyrone. I suppose there wasn't a lot of people giving them a chance going up. So it's brilliant to be back in this chance or back in a quarter final with a real chance of making a semi final.
Yeah, just even I don't know yourself from the area you're in, but just the lift is given everyone. Just one win like that, away at Tyrone that you weren't expecting, and now suddenly there's such a buzz around the place again. Looking forward to a big day out in Croke Park, and in a game that for Roscommon, yes, they're underdogs, but they go up with a realistic chance of possibly causing another upset.
Yeah, I suppose look, it's been a very much a mixed year. Like I suppose any year you're in Division One, you're probably going to be up against it. Like, trying to survive there to stay there. Just didn't work out in terms of staying in Division One, and then the kind of championship, the Mayo game was disappointing performance really. But I suppose since the start of the All Ireland series, Roscommon have probably been playing quite well. Good showing against Dublin, not so much against Mayo, and then a good showing against Cavan. And I think just with the draw, given that it was away against Tyrone, people weren't really giving them a chance. But they really got their chance the last evening and took it, to be fair to them, And then I suppose the draw, I don't know, if you had to, I suppose Armagh are a tough side. They are a good side, but it's still a better draw than pulling the likes of Kerry, realistically,
Before we go on to the game itself, just the championship in general, again, it feels very repetitive from this time last year. We were kind of, I think, at yourself and Colin Boyle on, we were reflecting on the group stages and how it wasn't really catching fire. It seems to be a similar trend this year. How have you found it from, I suppose, a viewer's perspective? Again, maybe last round of games and the prelims last week, we got a bit of action, but it felt like we were waiting a good while for it.
Yeah, I suppose there just an awful lot of games. Probably just it's hard to follow them all, I find. And I watch a lot of football. I use the apps there and that, but it's still hard to keep a track on all the games. Now it's brilliant to have them all, but the general mood seems to be that there isn't enough jeopardy, I suppose the word that's used in it. But I suppose the longer it plays out, though, all the games still have a big relevance. Even finishing top, the teams had the weekend off. Everyone's on about if Mayo had bet Dublin and had the weekend off, they wouldn't have got caught. Obviously, last weekend, Dublin would have had to go and play Derry. Obviously, in that game, you wouldn't know how that would have fared out. Even the likes of Armagh this weekend, they're a one seed as opposed to Galway had to go and play Monaghan in a tough game, and now they should have won that Armagh game. Really, they were in control in that game. Should have won it. Would have had the weekend off and would have drawn a 2 seed. So I think there's a bit too much negativity maybe about it. It definitely can be tweaked and improved, but I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. If you go back, 10 or 12 years ago, we were getting one game, maybe another game, and you were gone. It's a far better system than we have had. Teams are playing all teams at their own level. Even the Taoiseach Cup semi-finals at the weekend, they were good games. Great for Laois now to get to a final and another crack at Down. Down and Sligo had a cracking game, extra time the whole half. So there are a lot of positives to it. Obviously there's definitely things that can be improved, but I think some people do be a bit overkill on the negativity side of things,
Yeah, because even going to that last round of games, Armagh playing Galway and Dublin Mayo, I couldn't understand I suppose we got the year before where Galway and Mayo kind of messed up on the last day and they played each other, and then Galway were gone and then Mayo suddenly had to play Dublin. So I would have thought nearly from people's perspective going into it that they would have learned from last year. we seem like Mayo are gone. Like that they didn't win that Dublin game. They had to play Derry and they're gone. If Armagh didn't draw that Galway game, although if in the prelim they would have had to play Kerry or Dublin, they couldn't have played the other two. So like, yes, the group probably maybe if you had maybe the top two going through, but as it is, there is still a bit of jeopardy in it, although it doesn't seem like it. I think that's what it is.
Yeah, it probably doesn't seem like it at the time, but all the teams, the further you finish down the group, it's definitely very, very hard to get through the weeks because you're going to have to, probably win 4 big games in 4 weeks for you to be in with a chance of competing for an All-Ireland, which is a very, very hard thing to do. Like people would say Mayo messed up, but they were playing Dublin, to be fair to them. Dublin were probably just a really good team, probably the better team. I would have said that was a positive for Mayo that they actually pulled a point out of that game. I wouldn't have thought going into that they would have been within 4 or 5 points of them. So I thought they had put in a really good performance. I think Galway are probably the ones that have messed up really because they were really in control of that game and should have bet Armagh. And they'd be now looking at, they would have been number 1 seeds the last day, and the draw might have gone a bit differently. But they wouldn't be facing the Dubs anyways this weekend.
Yeah, sure. I'll head into the games. We'll start with the first game on Saturday, Armagh Roscommon. We just mentioned Roscommon. So from a Roscommon point of view, obviously we mentioned that great win in Tyrone. Now, then again, you mentioned there this will be week 3 on the trot now. Is that a big ask, or on the flip side, are the lads coming in with absolutely massive confidence now and bouncing into this game after that away win in Tyrone?
I think they'll be coming in with good momentum and good positivity. Definitely, given that there was a lot of negativity around, and it has been a tough year for them realistically. Been close in a lot of games, but just didn't get many points on the board or wins. And the last couple of weeks, as I said earlier, it has been, good momentum gather and a huge positivity around this week. So I think they won't have done a whole pile this week, realistically. They'll probably met up physio, rehab, and recovery. That's as much as they'll be doing. And a chance to play in Croke Park in a quarter final, I think they'll be happen,
Yeah, because it's always mentioned, and you will have heard over the years, 1980 was the last time Roscommon won a championship game in Croke Park. Does that be in the minds of players going into games that you haven't got over the line in Croke Park at all?
No, I'd say very few of them will even know anything about it. Realistically, it's different times, different teams, different everything. I think pundits and people on the outside pay a lot more heed to that. Obviously, we'd have known that we wouldn't have won in Croke Park in a championship game in a while, but the reality is, we won league finals and different things over the years in Croke Park. So it's not like we get bet every single time we go up. Generally over the years when we went up, you were playing a Dublin or you were playing a Tyrone, you'd got on quite well, but then you were meeting a team at a higher level, and ultimately you got bet when you got there,
Yeah, because you can nearly say the same for Armagh. They haven't been in a semi-final since 2005. And the last 2 quarterfinals, they've both lost on penalties to Monaghan and Galway. So, I mean, for Roscommon coming into this game, Armagh, probably the expectation on Armagh is massive. They knew they were probably playing Roscommon or Louth was the possibilities in the draw. So now suddenly their fans are thinking minimum semi-final. That has to weigh a bit heavy on their players, you would think.
Yeah, but look, it's a great opportunity for both teams. It's a huge opportunity for Armagh. They're a team that have probably been unlucky. I think Kerry McGeaney has done a fantastic job with them over a period of time. I know it's a 10-year period, but when he took them over, they were at a low ebb. I remember playing them a few times. They were bottom of Division 3. They're a solid outfit now, and looking to, they've been very unlucky to lose 2 Ulster finals now, which are very, very competitive. On penalties, you couldn't get any more unlucky. And I wouldn't mind even in the, a lot of their penalties have been cracking penalties. They've gone a good distance, not like they've gone out and fluffed all the penalties. So look, it's a great chance for them. It's going to be a big test for Roscommon. I know over the years, maybe over the last 10 years, we'd have quite a decent record against Armagh. But I think Armagh have gone another step or two this year, maybe over the last 2 years, but definitely this year, like they're a good side, and it'll be a really tough one for Roscommon.
Yeah, because it nearly seems maybe their conditioning and physicality has maybe just upped that bit in the last year or so, and even just touching on the penalties. I mean, 2 Ulster finals, losing both on penalties. Last 2 quarterfinals, losing both on penalties. Like they've not lost a big game technically, but they've not won one. So I think it's probably from our point of view, even that Ulster final, it was there for the taking, just to push on and drive it home and get over the line in a big game.
Yeah, like I think they probably have, to be fair to them, they have won big games, but they just haven't won a cup. I think that's really ultimately what the way it has been framed and the way it has came down to. And as you said, they've been very, very unlucky. Like they haven't lost them games; they've lost it on penalty shootouts. So, like I think they've just gained experience as they've gone along. Their conditioning is better because they're together longer. They have they've just accrued a bit more quality as well up front. Their forward play has definitely improved, but also their in-play management, and that has improved as well. Like a number of years ago, even the Galway game, like I don't think they'd have been coming back and got into that. As probably the only disappointment really would be maybe in the Ulster final, that when they were in control of it, that they didn't kick on and win it. I think that game was there for them to they were in the driving seat, and they should have really won that. But again, Donegal a really good side, and they put it to them that day, and were probably a better team. They should have won it in normal time.
Yeah, how do you see this game faring out? Because both teams have, probably their forward line is probably to their strengths, really, realistically. It was, but especially probably from a Roscommon point of view. There's a lot to talk about. Donny Smith, Conor Cox, Jimmer Mercer, Cathal Cregg are all coming into some good form, and Armagh. Conor Turbis has been he's really improved this year. He's been one of the players of the championship so far. So will it be an open game, or will it be a cagey game?
Yeah,
low scoring?
It's hard to know. Probably the way the teams set up will dictate that. Be interesting. Obviously, Roscommon will want to play on the counter attack with the forwards they have, or will Roscommon go back to their possession based type game to get control on it? Because Roscommon will have to improve again probably from last week, because Tyrone were definitely very poor in the first half. They got, I don't know, was it their energy levels or the way they set up or whatever, but there was just something wrong with that in the first half, and Roscommon got a great bounce on them. And but I don't think they'll get that against Armagh. So it'll be interesting to see, will they try and go with a shootout again and play that counter-attacking game, or will they go back to what maybe they've done previously and keep themselves in the game and play a possession type game? I would hope that they'll maybe play more towards an attacking type game, playing to their strengths. That they've done that more over the last 4 games since they went into the All-Ireland series. And it's like, obviously playing to your strengths helps. And I would hope that they'll go that way.
The 2 lads in midfield for, well, one in each, we'll say, Enda Smith, Rian O'Neill, kind of playing around the middle, both of them this year. Enda has probably been up and down. Probably he'd nearly say had a good game against Cavan, maybe just a bit off it against Tyrone. Now, from a Roscommon perspective, that's probably maybe a good thing that they actually won the game, and Enda wasn't maybe the main man. The other fellas stepped up. Rian O'Neill has been Armagh's talisman for probably 3 or 4 years now. So are they the key nearly? I mean, for this game, that they're the 2 go-to men that probably both teams would look at.
Yeah, look, I suppose Enda, I know he was carrying a couple of knocks there, so his form hasn't been at the level it was last year, but I suppose maybe just the body hasn't allowed for that to happen. But he has been showing sprinklings of his form over the last couple of games as well, which is very promising. So you could see a big game from him now this weekend when he comes into Croke Park. And look, at the addition of Ulton around the middle has been definitely a help there. And the improvement in the form, particularly in Conor Cox, has the last number of games has been really good. Brian Stack has came to the fore the last couple of games as well, to be fair. And the lads inside have been playing well all throughout, to be fair, in all the championship games. Donny, Diarmuid and Dara, they've been getting the bulk of the scores, even in the Connacht Championship, and that, like in that game against Mayo, they were good and got the majority of the scores. So I think if Enda could come in with a big performance, and I think the team as a whole, though, the last day, they were really at it. I suppose it was the first time that I probably could compare that they had a performance like that, maybe since the Mayo game last year, where they were tackling and cheering when they got the turnovers and all that type of stuff. They were, as a unit, they were really at it and really intense. And I think they'll have to be at that level and above this Saturday.
Yeah, and maybe just a word on Diarmuid Murtagh as well for Roscommon. I'd argue that he's probably going to get an All-Star nomination. I think he's been Roscommon's most consistent player. He's always averaging about 4 or 5 points from play. And I think it's the best he's been playing now, I'd say, for definitely probably pre or post-COVID, I'd say. I don't know what you go along with that.
Yeah, look, he's been very consistent this year. Like, look, at Diarmuid has always been a really good player, a really good finisher. Probably years back, his couple injuries used to kind of hamper him a small bit in terms of getting a run of form. But his form over the last period of time has been very good. He looks. I know I met him down earlier in the year in the Dome, and he just looked like he was in really good shape, really lean. He probably maybe lost a bit of the bulk that he had, and he looked in great shape. So I suppose he has all the ability to go with it. He always has, and lucky enough, the injuries have stayed away, and that's great for Roscommon. So you're probably right. Yeah, he more than likely will get an All-Star nomination, and depending on how the game goes this weekend, he could be in with a shout of getting something else.
So to finish up on this one, prediction. I mean, look, it's probably head over heart. Is it on this one?
Yeah, but I think it'll be a very tight game. I'd probably have to say, on the balance of everything I've seen across the year, I'd probably have to go slightly with Armagh, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was a draw, extra time, penalties, that type of thing. I think it could be a very close game.
Moving on to the second one, then Dublin Galway is the second game in Croke Park on Saturday. Now, I think you were in Galway for the Monaghan game at the weekend.
Yeah, I was up there. I was doing co-commentary for Radio 1 Sport on Saturday there. It wasn't great viewing now, to be honest, but it was tough conditions. Salt Hill is always the wind, but it rained quite heavy before the game, so it was tough conditions on the players. Like after 25-30 minutes, I thought Galway were in a bit of trouble. Monaghan were really up for the game, and Galway, Monaghan were maybe 2 points up at that stage, and playing quite well. Had missed a couple of chances, and then just 5 minutes before half time, Galway just kicked into gear and got a couple of scores. Ended up going in 1 point up. Start of the second half was, it was kind of tit for tat with Galway, just, I suppose, edging it. Got another point or two, but the game kind of hinged on Monaghan put one off the crossbar, and I think it was 10-8 at that stage. That would have put Monaghan a point up, and Monaghan literally folded after that, and Galway just kicked on. Really, they got 2 points near the end to bring it to 3 points, but it was a 5-point game really, and a few players. Paul Conroy was very good throughout. Maher and Finnerty in particular played well in the second half. So I'd say Galway won it, not having played that well. I would say maybe at 60 or 70%. So there's a lot more improvement in them, but they'll need every bit of it for the weekend.
Yeah, it's hard to even know where Galway are at because they haven't really had their best team on the pitch. I know every team will have injuries, but Galway seems to have just that bit more injuries to key players. The likes of McDade has been in and out. Walsh and Comer, we know the problems they've had. Even Sean Kelly's had problems. Like, these are critical players to Galway. It's nearly their spine of the team. So is it a bit of an unknown coming into Croke Park, that are they even ready to really put it up to Dublin?
Yeah, they're like, but they're one of the teams like am I right in saying they haven't lost a game in championship? They've drawn a few.
Yeah, that'd be correct. Yeah.
So they're even though the players in and out, they're still quite consistent. Maybe not playing that well, but playing consistently. Like, they won the kind of final, put in a good performance in that game as well. Like, McDade got another game under his belt the last day. Like, they're huge. They're a huge team, and they can play many different ways. Like, Walsh went off. I don't know how badly he was injured. I would expect that he'd be playing the weekend. Comer I know he'd been training there the last couple of weeks, and he got a few minutes into him in the second half the last day. He was quietish, but he made two big plays, and they got 2 points off it, which was important because it was a low scoring game. It only ended up 14-11 in the finish. So there were 2 important scores. So I just think that the open space at Croke Park will suit them because they're all good footballers. They're quite athletic. They like kicking, and they'll have a good structure defensively set up. So I don't think Dublin will go out and play gung ho against them. I think they'll probably replicate that and sort of maybe shadow them a small bit. So now, look, I do ultimately think Dublin will win this game, but I think Galway will give them a good game.
Yeah, is it just one of those things, if Comer and Walsh are even 70, 80%, you just have to play them? Because, I mean, you're playing against Dublin and Croke Park. Realistic, if they were playing, no disrespect, maybe Louth or even Roscommon, but one of they're maybe ranked 7 or 8 out of the quarterfinal weekend, you could say maybe we could get away with it. But when you're playing Dublin, you just have to go for it, I think.
Yeah, you just have to go for it with the way that the draw has gone. And look, hopefully Walsh's injury isn't too bad. Like, he has played well for them in Croke Park on most of the big days. So hopefully he'll be able to. Finnerty is very heavily strapped up as well on his leg there, but he's playing well. He kicked some great scores the last day. Johnny Heaney came on as well. He has been a big player for them over the last couple of years. So they have a bit of depth, but ultimately I don't think they'll have enough to beat Dublin when it comes down to it.
Yeah, because I was even thinking it's nearly hard outside of Kerry to nearly make a case for anyone beating Dublin this year. Now, I know we're coming into the business end, and this is where the teams will be hoping to peak. You'd have to think that game against Mayo 2 weeks ago for Dublin will be a big boost to get a real challenge. Like, the Mayo really did put it up to them in the Hive that day, so they're not coming in completely cold into this game then.
Yeah, they have been tested. Like, Roscommon gave them somewhat of a test, and it was probably they've been tested more than Kerry have been tested, I suppose. Let's put it that way. But like, the Roscommon put it up to them for a period of time, but then they just blew them away in the finish. That just gave them the quality. And Mayo really tested them, to be fair, because Dublin tried to get away from them a few times and were 2 or 3 points away, but Mayo really went at it, and it got into a battle, and they were ultimately able to get out of it. And I suppose that shows why they're winners. Like, I don't know, is that a set play? It was something that they had pre-rehearsed already, that kick out went out to Kilkenny, and McCaffrey came off him up the field. Like, but they're big players, and that's why they've won so much over the last number of years, that they can do it in the key moments of the game. And I think they're coming into this game nicely. Like,
yeah, because even the bench, you meant, like, McCaffrey was brilliant when he came on in that game. Like, he really drove it on, and even that play at the end, Paul Mannion came on. I think he kicked a point from the left hand side. Like, to have that level of depth, and maybe that's what other teams are missing. That you would think that Dublin, again, I mean, they're rightfully favourites for this game and beyond.
Yeah, like they brought the two of them off the bench. They still had James McCarthy on the bench, and they didn't even use him. Like, you know, and the game was that tight. So, like, McCaffrey is just such a game changer. Like, so is Mannion. Like, sure, the amount of All Irelands and All Stars and everything they have together. Like, there's no team that has Anthony even in the same ballpark as that. So, like, Galway have some good players, but nothing of that quality. Like, Costello is still like playing really well. He got 7 points the last day. You know, Basquel, like Costello's point at the end of the game.
Yeah.
Like, even for Kilkenny to be able to catch that ball, McCaffrey at the pace he came through, Costello to get the ball, fall, be able to get up and still get it over the bar. Like, it just shows the quality. No other team would be able to do it realistically. Like, you know, Paddy Small is a good player, Niall Scully. So it's, as you said there at the start, it's probably hard to see anyone beating them this year.
Yeah, is the one weakness maybe the full back line? We saw Roscommon cause some problems in Croke Park. Mayo caused them some problems. Would that be something Galway target? Maybe just put Comer edge of the square, get some early ball in just for the first 5 minutes, just to test it out. Michael Fitzsimons seems to be just maybe not on the form that he was this time last year. Again, he may be peaking for June, July. So would that be just something Galway target?
Yeah, I think Galway will. Yeah, I think they will, and maybe some of the size that Galway have as well could give them some trouble. But to be fair to Dublin, they'll play on the front foot. They won't play with that many sweepers. I know they'll get players back, but they'll play man on man for large periods of it. So that obviously puts the full back line under a small bit more pressure. Now, I suppose it goes back to what you were saying earlier in terms of Comer and Walsh and these lads having injuries, and you're maybe hoping that they'll perform rather than know. Like, if they were injury free and have played a couple of games, you'd probably be saying they will play well, whereas you're probably maybe hoping that they'll be playing and hoping that they'll play well. So, like, on the flip side of it, like, Comer was only able to come on in the second half the last day. There's no guarantee that he'll be able to play a full game the next day. And Walsh went off, even though I would expect that he'd play the next day. There's no guarantee. Dublin's assignment is a lot easier if the two of them aren't there realistically. Yeah,
so quick prediction. I think you're going to edge with Dublin, but will it be a tight game?
Yeah, I Galway will give them a game. Yeah, I will expect. I expect they will, because they're a good side, of good depth. But I just think Dublin, with the quality they have, will have too much for them in the finish. Probably 3 or 4 or 5 points, something like that. You know.
So on to the Sunday games. Donegal, Louth. I mean, we'll just start with Louth. Louth have probably been arguably the story of, well, the summer or the year. I mean, the job that Ger Brennan has done to continue the work that Mickey Hart had done the previous few years. I mean, it's remarkable, really, considering, you know, people would have thought at the start of the year, Mickey Hart leaving, that's just Louth maybe get relegated in Division 2 and fall away, to actually then kick on and then reach a quarter final, and deservedly so. I mean, it's a huge achievement for Louth.
Yeah, it's brilliant. They had, like, you can't underestimate how big of an achievement it was. It's only a couple of years ago since they were in Division 4, like, you know, and they're on the quarter final, on the cusp of potentially making a semi-final. And, you know, the way they've been going, who bet against them? Like, you know, they gave Dublin a right good game of it. I seen that game in the Leinster final. And the Med Dublin work for it, like, you know, and no one expected that to be the case. They just seem like a really honest group of players, work really hard. They've quality in there as well. You know, a lot of people speak highly of Ger Brennan. I know he's on the third level circuit and from Round Vincent's, and look, he's been smart enough too. He's brought in a lot of quality around him. You know, James McCartan there from Down is with him. He managed Down to an All Ireland there only 10 years ago. Niall Moyna, I know him well from DCU, really good. So to have the likes of them in your backroom team and as your assistants is it's very smart, and with the three of them at the helm of it, it's I'm not overly surprised that they're going well.
Yeah, because we're on about players playing for management, and you could say the exact same for Donegal. Jim McGuinness has come in, and you could just imagine there day one, the players, you're either in or you're out with Jim McGuinness, and it's worked. He's got an Ulster title. He's in a quarter final, and I suppose, look, it's a quarter final. Donegal will be expecting to win, so if they can get to a semi final at least with an Ulster Championship and a Division 2 title, I mean that's some first year even for Jim McGuinness coming back.
Yeah, it's brilliant, and I suppose probably being amplified even more just because they did a bad season last year, and so many players away. But I suppose the one thing with Donegal is they always have a lot of quality in the county. It's just that they're not that easy to get together. Jim seems to be the only one that can fully get them together, whatever way he does, he gets them fully bought into it. I suppose second time around now it might be a bit easier, but he done it the first time around as well because that had a lot of quality. Like I suppose the one thing against Louth here is that they've been caught already. Against Cork, I can't see Donegal being caught a second time. If that hadn't happened against Cork and they got out of jail there, you might be saying that Louth might catch them, on the hop or that sort of type thing. But I think Jim will have them well prepared, and that won't happen this time. Look, they've been a revelation in terms of the Ulster Championship and what they've done and the teams they've bet, and probably just the way they've went about it with such fitness and urgency and pace and power and everything. They were the brilliant part of the first part of the championship, anyways.
Yeah, is this where maybe we see that weak turnaround for Louth, that they've had to come through a real tough game against Cork to dig that one out? Donegal have been rested for 2 weeks. Donegal, any Jim McGuinness side is going to be fit, and they're going to be flying. And realistically, 2 weeks ago they played Clare as well, and that game was over after about 15 minutes. So Donegal should be well and truly rested coming into this.
Yeah, definitely. It probably has fallen nicely for them. They've had a bit of time to recover after the Cork game. That Clare game, it was a hammering, just 223 to 5 points. It was a whitewash, and then the 2 weeks off. So I think they'll come into it really, really well prepared, and it's a great draw for both teams there, really, with a chance to get to Croke Park. But Donegal in particular, who would have probably had maybe not many people from the outside would have been saying it from the start, but I'd say Jim was definitely looking at getting back to semi-final stage again, so it wouldn't be new for them. I'm sure they'd have talked about that earlier in the year, and it'll come to pass, I'd say, after Sunday.
Yeah, if as expected, Donegal do get over Louth, are they a team that could pose a problem to a Dublin or Kerry on a given day? Could Jim McGuinness, we saw in 2014 that day when they bet Dublin and no one was really expecting it that day, they did. Probably Jim McGuinness is one of these managers that we've seen in the Derry game, even in Ulster, he found a way to nearly exploit that Derry system and expose Lynch on those kickouts. That could he be the man that could just take a scalp of a Kerry or a Dublin this year, possibly?
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't bet against him doing it anyways. He with what he has done previously and this year and other years. I think they're probably a year, 18 months too early to probably take a Dublin, certainly a Dublin, maybe Kerry potentially. I wouldn't say without any great certainty anyways. Nothing is beyond the bounds of possibility with them, but they're a team that's improving and will improve an awful lot more over the next 12 to 18 months. So I think they won't really contend for an All-Ireland this year, but they definitely will in the next year or two.
Yeah, again, quick prediction. I think we know he'll be going for Donegal, I'm assuming, but in terms of the game itself, can Louth do what they did at least against Dublin and make it difficult?
Yeah, no, they definitely will. Like, it won't be. Loud will give it a right crack. I do think Donegal will probably come out on top in the finish, but Loud will be thereabouts.
To finish up, I mean, arguably could be the tie of the round, Kerry against Derry. You probably wouldn't have said it maybe 2 weeks ago if Derry were playing against Kerry in Croke Park that you'd be thinking it'd be a whitewash. But it just goes to show what 2 weeks can do. They looked pretty dead even against Westmeath when they won that game. But suddenly they took out Mayo. And again, maybe a bit like Roscommon. I think the confidence that'll give that Derry team that nearly, maybe not that they're back, but they feel more like the team that we seen earlier in the year at least.
Yeah, they're like, last weekend's performance was impressive, the way they went about it. Like, it was a tough game. Like, they were in a bad place only 3 weeks ago. Like, and they went from being in a really good place maybe 8 weeks ago to the rug being fully pulled out from underneath them. Getting hammered in a couple of games. Probably, like, humiliation maybe is a strong word, but like, they've been the talk of the country the last 4 or 5 weeks. All the rumors going around. I'm sure most of it is nonsense, like, but they still probably had to contend with that, and maybe they used that as fuel to get back going. The Westmeath was a tricky tide, because Westmeath have given teams a lot of trouble over the last 2 years, particularly in the All-Ireland series, and they got over that. And just, the way they went about the Mayo game, I thought was very good, even down to the last point, the equalising point. It probably was akin to maybe what Dublin done with the Costello. They had the know-how and the quality to be able to go in that defining moment, to be able to go and get that score and bring it to extra time, and then obviously go and win it on penalties, which they've done a number of times. I suppose the one I'd probably go back to, form is temporary and class is permanent. Like, Derry still, and it was the one thing I was probably saying going into the Mayo game last week, is that it was a very tricky one for Mayo, even though I expected Mayo to win it last week. Derry have still an awful lot of quality. Like, only 8 weeks ago, people were ranking them probably second or third in the country, and they're still probably not too far off of that. They're probably, third or fourth maybe now, given last weekend, but they have a serious amount of quality. Like, McKinless was back to his best last week. He was really good. McGuigan looked like he was back in form, and Glass and Rogers, who had been really out of form after being serious for them for a long period of time, looked like they had their mojo back a small bit, and I think it'll be a fair, stern test for Kerry the weekend, who haven't really been tested. They've been kind of cruising along. The draw, even Munster, the All-Ireland series, they probably had some of the handier group, if you like, and they gave most of the teams a good trimming in it. So they might come into it undercooked a small bit, even though I don't think they'll take Kerry for granted. So yeah, and I think even, the way that Derry lost to Kerry last year, I think that I heard a podcast from Conor Glass, I think it was the GA Social, there a couple of months back, and I know you could hear from it that one hurt them a lot, and it was one that they have it in their head to win an All-Ireland, like, and he openly spoke about that. So I don't think they're going to fear playing Kerry. And like you said with Roscommon last week, they have the momentum back, but Derry have real quality in that team, so they'll give this a right crack.
Yeah, because there's a lot of talk. Probably Kerry are actually maybe happy in a way with the draw, that this is a game where you'll know where you're at. If they do come through it and they get a good game, I suppose you're more prepared for the semi-final. So I think from a Kerry point of view, as we mentioned there, Munster and the group stage, they haven't really had a lot in their way. So I think even from a Kerry players' perspective and fans' perspective, at least you're going into a big game finally, at least, and you should be getting a good challenge at least.
Yeah, I think probably the only test, like Cork did give them, to be fair, in the Munster, it was the semi-final. They gave them they gave them a good game, and I seen Cork playing actually live there a couple of weeks ago against Clare, and in the first half to get that game, they looked really impressive. So that was probably the only test that Kerry have got since the league, really. But they can only play what's put in front of them at the same time, and they've gone about their business quite ruthlessly, and they've nearly demolished all the teams put in front of them. So they'll be happy enough to get a good game now, and they'll be obviously setting up to maybe win All Ireland, get a crack off Dublin later on. But this will be a tough test for them on Sunday.
Yeah, no, there's probably not a lot you can read into the group games, but maybe the one thing I watched a couple of them, that they weren't as reliant on maybe the likes of David Clifford, that there was a bit more of a spread of scores. Now that could be maybe again to do with opposition and that, but I suppose that'd be a positive from a Kerry point of view, that if it seemed in the All Ireland final last year that if David Clifford, who didn't probably have his best game, that if you could nearly eliminate David Clifford, you're nearly eliminating a big part of Kerry, which is fair enough. He is probably the best player in the country. Of course he would be, but it's probably just maybe chipping in with a couple more scores from around the place.
Yeah, I'd probably put Shawnee O'Shea in that bracket as well. I think he's very, very underrated, but I think if it doesn't happen for any of the two of them, Kerry are definitely under pressure. Look, Paddy Clifford brings a bit to that, but it's probably more of a running game. They probably have been getting more of a spread of scores around their team, but again, I don't know, is that down to they've been playing better, or is it just that they're racking up scores against maybe teams that they're just a good bit better than, Tony Brosnan and the two O'Connor's midfield. They've been scoring a bit. I've seen them playing live against Roscommon in the Hyde earlier on in the year as well, and O'Connor in the middle of the field got a couple of scores that day as well. He was quite impressive. But the only thing you'd fear for Kerry, maybe from the bit I've seen throughout the year, and I haven't seen their last two games now, so I don't know has that improved any bit, but they're definitely conceding more than they were when they won All Ireland the last time. They haven't got that fully back to grips with that sweeper system that they're trying to play, or I don't know, is it just that they haven't been showing their hand up to now? But I'd be surprised if they go into the All Ireland series as open as they have been. I expect that they'll have come up with some system or some way of playing that they're not going to be conceding goals and big scores,
Yeah, one of the key matchups from last year was, we're going to go back to me, it was Clifford and Derry put Chrissy McCaig on him. Now, I think Clifford got at least 7 or 8 points. He was the difference really in the end of that semi-final, and he probably, more than got the better of Chrissy McCaig that day. Would you put Chrissy on him again, or is it one of those, maybe a McAvoy, a younger type of player? Even, see, the thing is, you can't really drop Rodgers back the way because you're losing him in midfield. It's one of those, do you just stick and trust Chrissy McCaig to go on him again?
Yeah, look, I think he's probably still their best man marker outside of Rodgers. I don't think that I think they'll have to keep Glass and Rodgers in the middle of the field to win primary ball and be competitive in that area. Like realistically, if you're not winning your ball there, Clifford is going to be getting more fuel. So it's a tough one. I don't think the likes of McAvoy would be able to handle him. So I think they're just going to have to maybe soak it up to know that he's going to score a few points, but maybe try and concede a bit less than maybe the 7 that he did do last year. So I'd say they'll probably go again with McCaig and try and shut it down a small bit more out the field.
Prediction wise, so for this one, Cathal.
I'd probably have to say Kerry, but I have a hunch that Derry are going to come with a big one here, and I wouldn't be surprised if Derry go closer win this one. It's probably the only one that I could see maybe an upset in.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my finishing question. Is that the only game you can see a possible? I mean, I was thinking, not even from a bias point of view, I thought Roscommon may have the best chance out of the outsiders this weekend. I think probably Dublin and Donegal should get over the line. So maybe Derry and Roscommon would be the two you could look at as outside chances.
Yeah, like look at I think just where the teams have been at over the last few years, Armagh and Roscommon aren't a million miles apart, even though Armagh have improved over the last couple of years. I would say they're a better team going into it, but I think there's a bigger gulf between the other three teams. So I think out of them three, I think Derry's probably the only one that I could potentially. Dublin will beat Galway. It's hard to see Donegal not beating Louth, and I think that Derry are the only team that could potentially put it up to Kerry and get a win there.
Well, hopefully we'll get a good weekend of football, and hopefully a Roscommon win and a semi-final. I'll end on that note with that. Cathal, thanks very much for your time.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me.